Hello and welcome back to my channel. As I mentioned in the last video, for the month of December, I'm focusing my content on sharing my story with you and telling you why I decided to start a YouTube channel and grow a business in the hopes that as 2021 gets closer, you'll also decide to maybe do something a little bit different in your life and take a chance on you. So, as you can see, it is the same day, same cat, same Liz, and let's continue with the story. But typically on this channel, I am unpacking YouTube growth and anti-capitalist entrepreneurship. So if that does interest you, be sure to subscribe. And if you are looking for more strategy, I do have some of that on my Instagram at A Tribe Called Liz, so you can follow me there. Now, if you're just popping in, then I would definitely suggest checking out part 1 so that you are caught up and know what's going on. But where we last ended, I decided to start unpacking some of the rest of the bullshit that was in my life. And the next biggest issue in my life, I realized, was my career. So, being someone, again, who was used to doing all the right things and doing what you're supposed to be doing and doing what is expected of you, I went ahead and went to college because that's just what you were told to do. I got an internship. That internship happened to be an HR internship, and the work was okay. It wasn't terrible. I seemed to have a knack for it. So I figured, why not keep this going? I just continued down that path of getting more internships in HR and getting temp work in HR, all while still going to school full time so I could get a job in HR right out of college. As you can see, there was not much room here for creativity or exploration, discovering what I really wanted to do or discovering ways that I could be fulfilled in my work. I just followed a simple path that was directly laid out in front of me. I inevitably just convinced myself that this was clearly the only path that was possible and made sense. Then, once I had gotten a job right out of college, I did whatever I needed to do to work through the ranks and to the top of the career ladder. It was hard. It took a lot of work. I was dismissed at every turn because I was young, because I was black, because I was a woman. Hell, probably because I was left-handed too. Just throw that on there. Inevitably, I was able to be promoted because not even because I worked hard, and I worked far too hard, mind you, but also because I positioned myself as irreplaceable, because I decided to learn the things that no one else wanted to learn and that no one else knew, so that inevitably when people left, when people moved on, when people retired, I was the obvious choice, the easiest choice. And I really think that that is what led me to the positions that I was able to gain throughout my career. The kicker is that because I worked in HR, I always knew I was being severely underpaid in comparison to people who had my role previously, who had less experience, less education. It was right there in front of my face. At one point, I was literally the only one left in a department and was the head of the department, but my previous manager, before she had left, recommended that I be promoted to an assistant director. An assistant director. To whom? I was the only one there. And you see, that's the bullshit I'm talking about, where you can be the perfect person for the job. You can literally outwork everyone around you, have more education, have more experience, but for some reason, you're just not quite there yet. You're just not quite ready. And you know what that reason is? It's called unconscious bias. That's what that crap is. And it doesn't matter how many consultants that people hire for DE&I, that stuff is not going to be unlearned through an annual training, okay? It's going to take generations to undo that. And I don't have time to sit through generations of incremental progress. None of us should have to deal with that crap anymore. And to be perfectly honest, even though I've had to deal with this crap most of my life, it still it doesn't even begin to compare to what other Black women have to face who don't have the layers of privilege that I have. I have lighter skin. I have a certain level of education. I'm cisgender. I'm heterosexual. And I'm a person with no disabilities. So imagine adding all of that into the mix. Who can get ahead in corporate? Who? There are also other aspects of my personality that help to make me more palatable. For instance, I'm a Myers-Briggs ISTJ, so that means that I am pretty quiet for the most part because I'm introverted. I am pretty hardworking, but not in like a... Often it's seen in a positive light, but most of the time it gets into this nasty, just hustle culture, toxic work hard thing, kind of like what I talked about in part one of this story. So I'm basically the perfect workhorse, right? I am like a culmination of the ideal Black woman to white America, and it's fucking bullshit. I really just hated my career. I liked that I did it well, but I hated it. I hated the student loans that it gave me. I hated the fact that as HR, you were literally like the goody two-shoes of the workforce. I hated the fact that white people felt so comfortable around me because I could not be confrontational and call them out on their BS because that's just not what you're supposed to do. And the worst part of it is that in working in HR, you really get to see the worst of the people that you're working with. And most organizations, most companies are honestly free-for-alls. It's a hot mess in most places. And honestly, I was at the point where I was just truly sick and tired of having to constantly remind people to be human beings, to have basic human decency. But despite my doubts, I kept pushing through with HR. I kept wanting to pull through because clearly I just couldn't disappoint all of the imaginary people who were watching me and making sure that I did what I promised I would do back in college. After all, I had dedicated all of that time and energy and student loan money to this career. So I couldn't let it go. It just wasn't that easy. I didn't want to fail again. So I figured a change of employer might help. And it didn't. Actually, I got to experience what they call a true toxic work environment. It was great. I'm pretty sure this was the first time I'd actually experienced a truly toxic work environment, like the type of place where you experience so much hostility and chaos on a day-to-day basis that you kind of just spend many days crying at your desk. And then, here's the kicker, getting mad at yourself for crying and being weak. What? Who am I? What? I mean, I was just not the type of person that would quit jobs just because I didn't like them, especially being less than a year in. I mean, I know what tough jobs are. Like, I worked fast food, I worked retail all through college to survive and literally exist in this capitalist system. But once again, I was left with a choice. I could either continue to play this capitalist game, be this palatable, quiet worker bee, and continue to let my mental health literally deteriorate, or I could take another chance on me. And I did just that. A few months right before the pandemic. I quit that bad boy so hard. My last day was February 14th, and it was the perfect Valentine's Day gift to myself. Now, again, I have to preface this by saying I had many layers of privilege in place. At the time, I had a very comfortable savings, so I knew I could afford to be out of work for at least 6 months or longer. I also was sharing expenses with my person and sharing rent. So again, it was not a huge issue here. No kids. It was a pretty easy situation. And even though it was definitely not my intention to stay out of work for longer than just a few months, until of course life happened, I still felt like I had failed. This mindset I had, this concept of just feeling like I was failing by not sticking through impossible situations, just so unhealthy, and I could not shake it. It took a long time for me to actually stop considering choosing my mental health over my job as failure. And when the pandemic hit, and I must have had maybe 10 different job interviews with all of the jobs drying up because of the pandemic, I really felt like on some level that I deserve to have that happen to me because I decided to take a risk and to take a chance on me. And, you know, who am I to do that? A lot of people just suffer through jobs that they hate. Who am I to decide that I was going to choose my mental health and my energy and my peace of mind over stable employment? So while simultaneously definitely enjoying a chance to breathe comfortably and not actually have to work for the first time in years, since I even want to say high school, even though, you know, I was simultaneously really enjoying the hell out of that, I was also simultaneously wallowing in self-pity because I felt like a failure for not being able to overcome the powers of a global pandemic and find employment. Although, to be honest, I wasn't quite as surprised that I felt so bad for just choosing me all of those times, because my entire life, I connected my value to what I could accomplish, to what work I was doing, what output I could be producing. So when all of that dried up, I felt like I was in limbo. I didn't know what the heck to do with myself. And then I discovered YouTube. It wasn't like I was discovering YouTube for the first time. I'll say I was rediscovering it. I'd previously been obsessed with it back in my college years when I was actually figuring out, like, oh crap, like my hair can exist outside of a relaxer in braids? What? Who knew? That was the last time I had really fell in love with the platform. And because our phones are always listening, a video was suggested to me in my feed by Evelyn from the internet called I Quit My Job to Be Fun Employed. I know I bring up Evelyn from the internet in like a ton of my videos. I'm not like super obsessed with her, but like seriously, go check out her channel. It's amazing. And I thought to myself, this is really cool. Like, why can't I do this? Like, why can't I just start a YouTube channel and just do something completely new and different and terrifying and just put myself out there? I mean, I had nothing else better to do. I certainly vowed to myself that I would never promote my videos to my family or friends because obviously I would die from the fear of rejection. But I mustered up the courage to create my first video. Don't watch it. It's terribly embarrassing. But I loved it. I got to talk about whatever the hell I wanted, however I wanted to. My work wasn't being double checked by anyone. There wasn't anyone I had to answer to. For once, I could just create something and do something and have it be 100% mine. And dare I say, give me just a teensy bit of the spotlight. Honestly, I had been in the background for most of my life. I was ready to take a couple steps forward. I just feel like that's natural. When you're used to being in the background, whether by choice or by force, you know, being left behind by every aspect of society. When you're used to being the quiet, palatable, goody two-shoes in the corner that plays it safe, you kind of want to break out of that shell a little bit every once in a while, you know what I mean? Even though sometimes I am a woman of few words. When it matters, I have a hell of a lot to say. I always did, but I always felt like I had to wait my turn. And sometimes, well actually most of the time, I never felt like it was my turn. But the truth is, it had always been my turn. I just needed to go ahead and grab it. And it's not just my turn, it's all of our turns. You know, at some point, you have to just say what you feel inspired to say. Even if it scares you, even if you feel like you might be disappointing someone in authority, even if you're afraid of looking stupid or getting it wrong. Life is just far too short, and we are so much more than the boxes they try to put us in. So I started my channel, and I talked about whatever it was that I wanted to talk about, whether it be personal development, Ahmaud Arbery, Black Lives Matter, how to vote in local politics, whatever. And I got into a really good rhythm and learned so much about YouTube and YouTube growth, and immediately discovered that the mainstream YouTube community really has it all backwards. We'll talk about that next week. Because although I am grateful for all the knowledge that I gained over the first 6 months of my channel in regards to growing on YouTube, a lot of it was pretty unhealthy. A lot of the information that I was given was really kind of clickbait, sell you false hopes and ideals and have you chasing unrealistic expectations. I had to unlearn a lot of shit in order to be on the path I am now, which is trying to grow my channel and grow my business with integrity and in a healthy, holistic way. But thank you again so much for listening to part 2 of my story. Be sure to check out next week's video to hear part 3. And if this has helped you, be sure to like, share, subscribe. I do hope that this information can really help you in your own journey to choosing you, taking risks, and living a life that is true to you, because it is so worth it. See you later.